my given name is Tabitha. You may call me Princess or Princess Tabitha. Your Highness also works, although not in the presence of either of my parents. Although that is no longer an option, the rule still applies. And rules are to be followed. My father always told me, rules are to be followed, and rulers are to rule the weak and the simple. Treat them with a little kindness, and punish them accordingly when they are disrespectful, and they will continue to feed and clothe you for your lifetime. Good words those were, and even when I was young, I thought them good enough to live by. Now, after his shocking betrayal, I am no longer so sure if mercy should ever be something that a ruler shows a subject. But I digress. It is my right as a princess to speak overly long. Besides which, I need not have your blessing to speak. You are but a nobody, a mere observer. And likely, I know, it is likely that you observe me now, and doubt that one in such a state, such as I am in, could legitimately be one of royal blood. I recognize I am not in the state of opulence that I once was. My state is now one of survival and of simmering rage. So, let me indulge you, and I will catch you up to speed on my life in a manner that causes my words to be short and succinct. My full name is Tabitha Laurel Black. If you were a descendant of the ancient Boreans, you would recognize the manner of my naming. Black is my family name, and Laurel is the name of my great-grandmother on my father's side, as is the Hyperborean way of naming those of royal blood or of a current ruling bloodline. I come from the land of Hyperborea in the far north. My father ruled the small city-state of Shaunona for well over 3 decades. He was in his late 70s when the priests led the surprise uprising against him. Vela's god of the underworld had always supported my father's rule through his priests, but now one of their own led an uprising of the people, swaying the army and the common people against my father. He was cut down on his very own throne, my mother turning me away and shielding my eyes just before the axe bit in, but I can still remember the sound. After that, we too ran. We grabbed some horses and we fled. I was 14 years of age when this occurred. It was just my mother and I who fled. We could trust no one else. This had come up so suddenly, no one had known that anyone was unhappy with my father's rule. How could this be? I had had 2 older half-brothers, both grown men who had passed away long before this. I had only just barely met one of them before his death, while the other had been dead and gone long before I arrived on the scene. I was the last child of my father, at least as far as we knew. And so we fled back to my mother's people. It was a long trek to Brythunia, much of which we made on foot as we had to sell the horses to afford food and supplies, for we had left swiftly and unprepared. When we arrived in the city of Hilder, my mother's people welcomed us in. Mother had fled this land long ago, fled when there was a dispute between my grandmother and my mother over whether or not she would accept training as a sorceress. My mother refused this responsibility and she fled for Hyperborea, where she met my father, the recently widowed ruler of Shaunona, and she agreed to marry him and thus took on responsibility of another kind, becoming the city's queen. We stayed in hiding in Hilder, not announcing our presence there. My great-grandmother had been one of Hilder's greatest magic users, but she was long since passed. Nevertheless, in the following 8 months, many of my kin ladies sought to teach me about magic and sorcery. I learned a little, more out of respect and politeness than any other reason. I was still dealing with the loss of my father, the loss of my home, and the loss of my title and lands. Everything had been taken from me, and I was still trying to process that. We thought we were safe in Hilder, but it ends up we were dead wrong. A small force of Hyperboreans from Wahneta descended upon the city of Hilder, breaching the walls in the dead of night, and those 11 mighty warriors of my father's people systematically sought out and eliminated my mother's kin, killing many in their beds as they slept. 62 was the number of Brythunians killed in Hilder that night. In the end, all 11 attackers were killed before the sun came up, but by that time my mother's people were devastated. I lost 69 relatives that night, including my dear mother, and so the rightful rulership of Wahneta passed in that instant to me. Now, the ruler of Hilder, Queen Rhaenys, she decided that it had been a bad idea to bring me here, to allow me to even enter their city, that I must be bad luck, I must be cursed of one or more gods. Queen Rhaenys wanted me out of her city, and even appealing to her royal to royal did me no good. I was officially charged with treason, though there was no evidence to support it, but this allowed the Brythunians to give me to some slavers who were passing through, paying them well to take me to a far-off prison and leave me in its deepest and darkest cell to spend the rest of my days there. The slavers marched me on a long overland journey to the coastal city of Meixsell in Argos. When I arrived in Argos, I was less than 2 weeks short of turning 16 years of age. My time in prison was long, dark, and lonely. I lost count of the exact days, but it was close to 2 years before I got out. Not released, mind you, but transferred away. They had meant to keep me there until the day I died, but there had been a small but violent prison riot, one which I had not participated in at all, of course. The prison's warden had been stabbed and he died during the riot. When things calmed down, the guards found the bloody murder weapon in my cell. I don't know how it got there. I don't even really know how to fight. I have barely ever wielded a weapon in my life. I am a princess of royal blood, remember. Nevertheless, the guards took the easy answer to their questions, and they blamed me for the warden's death. They hauled me out into the light, stripped me of my rags so that I was naked in a city square for all the commoners to gawk at. Then the guards beat me within an inch of my life. Every time I passed out from the pain, they would pour buckets of cold water over me to wake me up, and then continue beating me some more. I honestly never knew that such pain existed, and I had never wanted to die so much as then. But I survived, and when they had had enough of their fun and games with my battered and broken body, they grabbed me painfully by the wrists and hair, dragged me down to the docks, and dumped me into the hold of a slaver ship. This ship was bound for some cursed place called the Exiled Lands, a place no one came back from. The slavers and sailors mocked me, told me that when we reached that place they would tie me up on a wooden cross in the desert and leave me there for the buzzards to fight over. But a strange and unnatural storm intervened in those plans one night as we sailed, and early in my 18th year of life, I was washed ashore on a very strange island indeed. When I washed up on shore, I was naked and more than half drowned. Not a fitting state for a princess to be in, but it had been a long while since I was treated according to my station. I must admit, I was almost getting used to being overlooked and disrespected. All around me, flotsam and broken pieces of ships, as well as dead bodies, were all being pushed ashore by the waves. Not having another choice, I scrounged some clothing off of a few corpses that wouldn't be needing them anymore. And I almost managed to not make a face of disgust when pulling the wet, mismatched pieces over my limbs and onto my body. No sooner had I finished clothing myself than I heard excited voices approaching. I ducked behind some debris and peered out. Scavengers and pirates, by the way they were dressed, and armed to the teeth, too. Realizing they had come to this very beach to search for valuables amongst the bodies and wreckage, I waded silently back out into the water and let the cool liquid of the seas hide me, staying submerged up to my neck and hiding behind an old hulk of a wreck jutting out of the water, judging that this thing must have been searched many times over by now, so hopefully the others would not come too near and spot me. I waited about an hour before they moved on. My legs were numb from treading water that long. I collapsed on the sand when I made it back ashore, half passing out from weakness, until a passing crab pinched me on the thigh and startled me back to wakefulness. Getting to my feet again, it was time to search the shoreline for anything useful. Rocks and branches could be used to make simple tools. Plant fiber grew in the water and along the beach, could be used for weaving into ropes or maybe even simple clothing if need be. I even managed to find several intact water skins, which I greedily drained and filled back up. I felt myself growing stronger as the sun rose higher in the sky, nearing its zenith, and I marveled at the feeling. I should be beaten down, exhausted and downtrodden of spirit. But maybe, just maybe, it was the fact that I was free. Free at last. Cooped up for so long in that prison, never seeing the sun, and then recuperating from my beatings down in the hull of the slave galley. This place seemed like paradise. I don't know what those scavengers were afraid of in the water, but I quickly figured out that swimming out a ways and diving on some of the offshore wrecks could produce some small treasures. Why no one else had looted these underwater hulks, I did not know, but I was soon taking advantage of it. I tried my best to loot all those in my vicinity, but as quickly as I could, I would need to make some decisions before night fell upon this place. Underwater, it seemed, was not the only place to find hidden treasures. The edge of the beach going inland had many dotted ancient ruins, crumbling structures, and things of that nature that I could not quite put my finger on what they were from, but they were all abandoned and they were all old. And climbing up some of these, I've discovered some boxes with simple treasures within them that will do me very well. Thank you. Oh, alcohol. Just what a girl needs. I've decided to set up a small encampment here on the beach. Somewhere we can store some things in a box. Hopefully it won't get stolen from us while we're out and about exploring this place. Also, somewhere where we can cook some meat up, or some of the oysters we got out of the water, and somewhere we can put a sleeping bag. I find more than a few bushes that are heavy with berries, and I make sure to set about collecting them. These look good. Having fashioned some crude stone daggers, we use them to make our first kill. And then to dress it. It is as I suspected. There are far more terrifying creatures here than mere birds. Using the laws of verticality taught to me by my father, I did some climbing to get a better lay of the land. Beauty everywhere I can behold. No palaces fit for a princess, unfortunately, just the wilds. And then I went exploring along this river inland, where we got far too close to some hostiles for my liking. I found a cave whose vibrating hums drew me into exploring. My eyes watered and my lungs ached like I was breathing in smoke, but there was none. Worse yet was the unexplained cold, for as I entered the cave, I found my nipples were immediately so cold they threatened to tear themselves from my very body. But inside, wonder of wonders. Someone's sorcery accoutrements, maybe meant to teach a young acolyte its ways. Maybe Zir blesses me this day from his perch at the center of the earth, to grant me revenge against the followers of Veles who killed my father and mother and drove me into deep exile alone and naked. A princess deserves nice things, you know. And these should be nice. It was good to feel the sunlight on my face again, but a cold shiver seemed to linger in my chest after messing with the strange island magic. Every time I breathed in deeply, I could see my breath when I exhaled it. How odd. Rather than stay here and risk meeting the scavengers if they return to this beach, I decided to push northwards, keeping the water close by on my right. In the north, I found a strange set of large ruins looming over the water. But they were well guarded, and by creatures most foul, so I stayed well enough away. Okay, a girl's gotta look. And after all, looking at her subjects is a princess's prerogative. Yeesh. Everywhere I went, and I mean everywhere I went, even in the oceans themselves, this island had wonderful mysteries to solve. What if I just... let's see... and treasures to pick up. Nice. I'll take 2 of those. And what do we have here? Gimme, gimme, gimme. While getting ready to bury a chest of valuables for later, a strange warm wind swirled across the sand. I beheld what I can only describe as a magical storm. Swirling winds with a pink glow emanating from in their middle. How delightful. Beautiful. I also encountered a camp of castaway pirates, but these ones were at least neutral towards me. They'd even set up an area that they could trade from.
Well, well, look what the tide washed up.
Ugh, that God's cursed bastard! That goat-raping son of a whore! I'll cut off his balls and crush them in front of him! What do you want? I'm busy figuring out how to get my revenge on that pig. The ship was almost finished.
Damn, what's that bitch's problem?
Dark-hearted
Go away.
bastard swept in and set it all aflame.
No refunds.
I also found a stray cat or two that I might have picked up, and as well as a bar to buy a drink and a dancer
What can
who,
I get you?
well, watching him
Farewell,
made the
exile.
chill in my chest feel warmer. Better.
No refunds.
Strange. Not sure what that ale did to me, but I had a weird dream that I fell down and died, and then I was naked, and everyone in the pirate camp pointed at me and laughed. Nobody laughs at a princess of Hyperborea, pirates! And so in my dream, I slaughtered the entire camp and literally bathed in their blood. I'm feeling flushed. I could sure use a man of royal blood to satisfy my needs right now. Large, shallow puddles with brimstone growing from them, and scorpions lurking nearby were the next things that I discovered. As I moved inland from the northern shore, I kept checking the crude map the pirates had sold me. Sand, sand everywhere. It's in my shoes, it's in my hair, it's in my... well, you get the idea. Sand everywhere. Sure be nice to find a spot without sand. Oh, excuse me. Scorpion! Ow! Things half the size of me! Gods. So, eventually I came to a small lake. Water looked really good, but an entire family of jungle cats had moved into the area. So I quickly backtracked and moved on. But eventually, I found a shallow valley full of iron ore and coal, with some other resources I would need as well, and I decided to set up a more permanent base there. You. Yeah, you. Look, if you're gonna sit there and stare and lurk at a lady, at least buy her a glass of wine first. I'll see you guys next time. This princess needs some shut-eye.